welcome back to the Tell It Like It Is podcast. I'm your host, Larissa Pena, and today we are concluding our very first season. So I had to bring my favorite person in the world back in the studio with me.
We back, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. We weren't even supposed to be here, you guys. We're supposed to be somewhere out of the country.
That's a whole other story, too.
That's a whole other story for another day. But the Lord allowed us to be here for such a time as this. And we have a really important conversation to have with you guys. PSA, for real. Public service announcement. Yeah. Honestly, for the past several years, my husband and I have been pushed against a wall. And we finally found ourselves in a place where we realized there comes a time where you got to start pushing back. When I started this podcast, I did it with the intention of creating a safe space to be able to share the truth with conviction, with authority, with intention. And I also knew that we had the ability to be a voice for men and women who have found themselves in spiritually abusive environments. But I wasn't oblivious to the fact that we could be potentially upsetting the one person who has been trying to control the narrative from the moment that we left this organization.
Tell him.
You ready to tell him?
Yes, you need to tell him.
Just months after my husband and I left an organization that we were working for, I remember creating a series on TikTok where I was sharing about our journey into ministry and really just giving young people advice on how to find a job in ministry. And I remember creating a video for green flags when finding a job in ministry and red flags for when you're finding a job in ministry. And I highlighted just a couple of things that we had experienced that nobody told us about. There's no handbook for ministry. And so I really just wanted to give people insight on what to look out for and what to be cautious of, on what to be aware of. And not long after I posted that video, I received a cease and desist. And I remember when I saw that letter in the mail initially, I was terrified. I was scared. Because I didn't know how the heck I would pay back a severance package that I didn't have money to pay back. I was afraid of my character being put in question. I was afraid of potential ministry opportunities being taken away. I was scared. So I took down the video. But lucky for you guys, I'm not that girl anymore.
Let's go.
I'm not afraid of people who misuse their power and authority to instill fear inside of people. I'm not afraid of people who weaponize money to intimidate people, to scare their former employees. And I sure as heck am not afraid of another cease and desist. So I'm going to tell you guys what I think about this piece of paper.
Let's go. I gotta rip it too because that has my name on it too.
Let me
you know,
give you a little
I'll rip it into the 8 pieces. Let's go. Yo, to the cease and desist. Bye.
Bye. To be completely honest with you guys, when we posted that second episode about toxic church culture, Lewis and I were really nice. We literally danced around the things that really took place because the intention was never to point fingers, to, name names or name organizations. The point was to expose the realities of what takes place behind the four walls of the church. Unfortunately, when it is led by insecure leaders. And what I want to do in this episode is I want to talk about what real spiritual abuse looks like in the church today. We live in this generation where church hurt is a buzzword. Church hurt is what every young person deals with. They walk into a church and they feel like they were mistreated, disrespected, judged, shamed, isolated. And I'm not trying to minimize those things, but we tend to toss that word around very loosely where people say, well, I was church hurt because my pastor didn't throw me on stage and put a mic in my hand. Oh, I'm church hurt because my leader actually held me accountable for my actions. Church hurt is very real, but it's important to be able to distinguish the difference between church hurt and spiritual abuse. Church hurt can be anything from a breach in trust, judgment, exclusion, experiencing wounds from your mentors or your pastors or your leaders, unhealthy church culture, legalism, things like that. But spiritual abuse, it is when a leader, a mentor, or a pastor utilizes, weaponizes their position and their spiritual influence to manipulate, to exploit, and to abuse their flock, their people, their team, their employees, whatever. And I really want to highlight the fact that I think that when you hear that word spiritual abuse, it sounds so big, it sounds so scary, it sounds almost hyperbolic, but the reality is that spiritual abuse starts very, very small. And Lewis and I were discussing this when we look back on our time in this organization that was very clearly unhealthy. It started emotionally and psychologically. It almost felt like we were being tested. Right. Like from the moment we got there, you start hearing all of these negative conversations, hearing negative words and phrases about former employees. Oh, well, this is how they acted and this is what they did. And then it transitions into hearing negative conversations about other churches, the church down the street. Oh, do you see how their pastors do this? Gossiping about their personal lives, gossiping about the way that they lead, their new LED screens, all these little things. And it's almost like these things are being said in front of you so that they can see how you're going to react. Are you going to question these things? Are you going to actually, push back and say, hey, like, is this really how y'all talk about other believers? And it turns into a us versus them mentality, where if you hang out with the rival church down the street, sorry, you can't associate with us anymore. Like, it becomes very, very ugly and competitive and unhealthy. And that was never how the church was intended to be. I remember seeing a very clear switch where, we would hear our pastors and our team speak negatively about other employees and other churches. But then at some point, that negativity was turned on to us, where we would get pulled into meetings and every single meeting was something negative. It was, you left a basketball on the basketball court, you left a pipe and drape on the floor, you left a volleyball, you left a water bottle on stage, like something silly. You could have 50 kids come to know Christ and you would not hear one positive thing about what happened that night. It would just be all of the negative things that took place.
Yeah, no, I feel like, I would say, to kind of think about it, I really don't even see it. I don't think it was negative in their eyes. I think they think that is like normal. So it's like we look at it as negative, but like they're so blind to how they are as a person that to them it's like, no, this isn't negative. This is like, to make you a better person. Like, this is supposed to them, they're thinking like, oh, this is to better you. It's like when your dad is, yelling at you because you playing baseball. My dad would yell at me because I didn't hit the ball. It wasn't because he was, trying to be negative with me. To him it was like, no, this is to make you better, and that's the way they view it. So I'd say when we say it was negative, I just think it's kind of sad, but to them it was like, no, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to fix this, and like you had 80 kids at your attendance, but you need to be at least gaining 50 kids every year, and it was always like the next, always trying to grow and grow. But I realized that a toxic thing there was like, it was never praising the progress. It was just like, we need to be like the mega church down the street. So I did see that in there.
Yeah, it just felt like there was always this spirit of competition. There was always this spirit of negativity. It was like I could sit across from my pastor and see him talking to another pastor, talking crap about another pastor. Yeah. Like, it's like, that's not how we should be behaving as brothers and sisters in Christ. If anything, we should be partnering with other churches, with other ministries, with other ministers. If anything, I think I had more fun in ministry when we had opportunities to collaborate with other churches, when we had opportunities, when I got to meet with other pastors and just get to be around a community of believers just trying to figure out ministry, But it does get to a point where it begins to feel like every single meeting that you have with the pastor that you serve under, when it's only negative, where I remember we would sit down and hear things like, I don't know if this is really a calling for you so much as a career. Maybe this is just a career for you. Yeah. Or things like, when you raise concerns about some things, hey, like, I'm not sure about this, or you raise concerns, or you question things, that's, well, you know what? You guys are so lucky, because I used to work for a tyrant. I used to work for somebody who was really, really hard on me, where days were difficult and I went home questioning everything. And, you guys are so blessed. You're so lucky. Larissa, you're so lucky because you're the first spouse to be hired on staff. It was like, you couldn't you couldn't ask a question, you couldn't push back, you would be gaslit left and right, where you could walk into an office thinking that the sky is blue and you would come out genuinely believing that the sky is purple because of how things would be turned on you. And I just remember getting to a point where we've been in this for years and years, and we're like, we're in this because the Lord called us to do this. We're doing ministry, not because a man opened a door for it, but because God called us to do this. But then when everything becomes so negative on a daily basis, it gets to a point where just receiving a text message on your phone causes anxiety. Right. I remember getting text messages after being clocked out. Oh, you guys left this in the gym. Oh, you guys left that in the gym. And these are small, minuscule things, you guys. I don't want you to think that we're sitting here like, oh my gosh, it was so hard and difficult. These are silly little things. But when you start to get phone calls after you clock out, you immediately think that you've done something wrong. When you get phone calls being yelled at and reprimanded by your pastor for something that happened during a service, that starts to cause anxiety, and ministry no longer becomes fun where you see a Slack message or a, hey, we got to meet, or hey, we need to talk, or getting pulled after a staff meeting. Hey, we need to have a conversation because you went and got coffee with a college student. Like, that's not normal. You guys, I need you to understand something. Like, when you are in a workplace, there are boundaries. When you're on the clock, you do what's asked of you. You do it to the best of your abilities. And when you're off the clock, you're off the clock. I know that in ministry, the lines get a little bit blurry because there's weekends where you have to have outreach.
Well, I'll say like that. Well, I'll say, let's talk about what are points, because we're going on different stories about what we've been through. But everybody's not going to go through exactly what we went through. Yeah. And some people will be like, wow, I went through that. You might be like, oh my gosh, like I went through the exact same thing. But I guess what are some things that you're watching this right now and you're like, dang, like I am probably going through something like this. What are the red flags that you need to watch out for? And there is green flags too. So what are those points that we tell somebody, hey, how do you know? Because sometimes, a pastor or a leader might do something that might be like maybe a wrong decision. Sometimes that's not how the pastor is. Sometimes they maybe did a wrong decision and it probably hurt that person. But I've heard stories where I've had great pastors in my life where they've not heard stories about them, but it's not who they are. They just made a bad decision. It was like, okay, that was something they did. Right. But how do you know you're in a toxic place, right? Like, how do we give them points and to know, like, this is how you know you're in that place. Right. What are those things that we can give that you think you experience? That's good. Yeah. Like points
I think for us, what we came...
Because we experienced it differently too.
We did. But I think just in general, spiritual abuse is marked by control. It all starts with control. And for us, the first thing that we noticed was control with money. Our tithe is being taken out of our paycheck, and we're being graded on our giving and little things like that. But then it even got to a point where there would be control for outside opportunities. Hey, I would get opportunities to preach, and of course I would tell our pastor about it, and he would be like, hey, well, I want to know what church you're going to. I want to know how much they're paying you. I want to know where you're going to make sure that it's not sketchy, under the guise of we want to protect you. And I can understand that to a certain degree. But then I remember going to preach at a spiritual emphasis week at a local school down the street from our church. And after preaching there, the school had asked me to become a chaplain on a weekly basis to put on services for the students. And they asked both my husband and I to do that together. And so we went back to the church, told our pastor about it, and he's like, yeah, that's awesome. I think that would be great. I believe that there's, a history of students going to that school too. So he was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And then later that week, he went to that school behind our backs and set up a payment plan for the school to pay the church and for the church to pay us.
So weird, yeah.
So that might not seem like something grandiose, but in reality, that was another means for controlling money, because we don't actually know how much they were going to initially pay us. Right. We don't know if now the school was going to pay the church something and then the church paid something. Again, it was all control. And that was something that I think that's something that bothered me, but I wasn't looking at that in its own and thinking I'm being spiritually abused. Yeah. And then things transitioned into controlling our time off, where right. I remember, Lewis and I would go on trips on the weekend, and, I didn't grow up going on vacations. I didn't grow up going to nice hotels, and Lewis used to work for a hotel company and he would get discounts. So we would drive a few hours to go back to Orlando to be with our family and stay in hotels, and I would post videos and Instagram stories of our hotels. And then we would come back, on Sunday back to work. And then on Monday we'd get pulled into the office and I would get told, I think you should really stop posting those hotels on your Instagram Instagram story because it looks like you're rubbing it in the face of the church congregants. This is what people are saying. This is what our pastor would say to us. People are saying that you're rubbing it in the face of the church congregants. So then I was like, okay, I guess I can stop doing that. And then it turned into, you know what? Actually, don't leave on the weekends because now it appears like you're escaping your job.
Yeah.
It looks like you want to get away from your job. And I'm like, isn't that what the weekends are for?
Yeah.
You know, and then so when you go from being controlled, I know that perception really matters. And in ministry, you're called higher. So you have to be very cautious of what you post, how you show up online. But being told what you can and can't do on your days off, that's when I was like, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
And it really escalated when, you know, one year, Lewis and I saved up as much money as we possibly could and used all of our PTO to save up for a trip to go to Hawaii. I'm pretty sure half that trip was on Afterpay anyways. And I remember after getting our days approved, we got sat down by our pastor and he said, you know, you guys are going to Hawaii? That's a really nice place to visit. You know that most of the kids in your youth ministry will never get to experience a vacation as nice as that? And then my husband said something to him right after that.
Yeah, it was crazy because, I grew up, our family, we didn't really, take vacations, tropical places every year. I mean, we'll probably do something maybe once every other year. So yeah, vacation for me was huge. And I remember when he said that, he was like, yeah, not a lot of kids can do this. And there was two things that popped up for me. First, the thing I was like, well, maybe they can look at me from a kid who, didn't grow up much. That's possible for them too to go on vacation in the future too. Maybe this is giving them hope. I'm not going to vacation to a nice place because they can't afford it. Maybe I can give them hope. That's what we're supposed to do. Second thing, it was funny because that same month or the month before was like COVID and all this stuff was, happening. And I remember within that same month, he bought, it's so funny. He was flexing on IG and I get it. Get your hustle, do what you want, buy what you want. I'm all about I love fashion. I like stuff. And he bought a new Audi. And I'm like, hold on, you got a new Audi and you're talking about I'm going on vacation. Which I'm like, get your new car, but bro, judge yourself as well as much as you want to judge my life, because I'm pretty sure my students cannot afford an Audi. Neither can I at this time because I'm getting paid a salary, not much. So I wasn't mad at him for buying, but I'm like, why are you looking at me? Look at you, like, come on now, like let's.
It felt like a double standard.
Yeah, but when you live in a toxic mindset like that, everything is point,
right.
and you never look at yourself.
Yeah.
So, but.
Because you're telling your employees, hey, you're going on a nice trip to Hawaii while you're literally getting an Audi out of a vending machine and you're posting about it on Instagram.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I mean, get your car. But I'm like, we talking about money, like you're over here flexing. So I'm like, I respect it, but come on now.
And as you should. I think everybody in ministry, you deserve to go on vacation. You deserve to have nice things.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to live this life of poverty, but there shouldn't be a double standard where I feel like I've noticed in church culture, the only person that gets to eat is the senior pastor. The only person that gets to have the nice house and the nice car is the senior pastor.
Not every church.
And it's not every church.
I've heard great stories.
It's
not every, but there is obviously.
But it's a strong majority.
But I do say that,
it is a strong majority.
Which I mean, some do. So I've heard stories where people are hating on the pastor got a new, Mercedes Benz or a new Lexus, and they sell books, So it's like I respect
true.
also like
streams of income.
Some people are mad that the pastor's got a big old $1 million home. And I'm like, yeah,
they work for it though.
He's got books. I mean, like what if one day somebody points at me and says something like that, about my life? They don't know the hustle I've been. So I can't always judge everybody's situation. I think that's between them and God and what they're doing. But that's how I see it sometimes.
I think that there just needs to be a balance, I think that, if you're working hard to write your books, you're creating programs, you're creating resources for people to benefit from, those things are worthy of being compensated for. But at the same time,
I know pastors at churches I've been to, and the senior pastors are super cool people, and they travel 5 to 10 times a year, all-inclusive resorts. I see they post, and I love it. Like, I'm like, hey, you have a lot on your plate, and I don't know, maybe and I see them hustling. They got other foundations going on, other businesses, and I'm like, that's cool. Like, I love that, as long as you don't judge me for when I do mine, like there's no difference. But
Yeah. So back to what you were saying, for people to be able to find markings for what spiritual abuse looks like. We talked about how there's a psychological perspective where there's, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling fear, there's control. Right. There's control with your money, with your time off, with what you're doing while you're not and you should live a life of wisdom and use caution with the things that you choose to do outside of church. But I think there are deeper levels to it as well. I think for us, I think this was the moment where every single red flag was waving. And I think it was the first time that I felt frozen. I remember, all of the pastors getting pulled into the boardroom and the senior pastor of the church walking in and basically letting the staff know that there had been I want to word this with caution, just in respect to the people that were affected by this. But our pastor basically made it clear that there was somebody who was on the worship team who was sexually abusing their daughter, and their daughter was a part of our youth ministry. And after letting us know about these allegations, this senior pastor immediately said, "But we can't believe this young girl because of a series of reasons." And I remember hearing those words and genuinely thinking, did I really just hear that?
And this is in a room full of other people that are...
This is a room full of other pastors.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there dead silent. And this man is saying, this girl finally opened up about what her father has been doing to her. And he is saying, we can't believe her. Then he proceeds to say, well, I'm going to go check up on her father, who is the predator in this situation, to make sure that he's okay.
Which is weird energy.
And that was the first time that I sat with another pastor and I had asked her straight up, did we just hear that? Did he just say we do not believe a young girl who has just opened up about abuse? You're telling me as a pastor, as a man of God, as the shepherd of a flock that you're supposed to protect, you're telling me that you don't believe a teen girl who has been sexually abused by her father? What if that was me? What if that was my daughter? I asked myself in that moment, what the heck would I do? And not long after that, that man who was accused of all of these things is running around a prayer service, walking around like nothing happened.
And I remember even, being like, why is he here at the church? Why is he even here? He needs to be in handcuffs at not even near this place.
And it took us having to sit down with our pastor to tell him, hey, there's kids around here. There's teenagers around here. And then he was like, oh, okay, I should probably tell him.
And I actually was the one that told him. I was sat down with him and I was like, hey, I think it's kind of weird that you went and it doesn't look good. And I remember telling him, I literally remember saying to him, I can't remember the exact conversation, but I remember saying why are you at it doesn't look good. You show up to a house with a guy who's accused of this. And then he's like, oh, you're probably, I think he agreed with me. I remember I maybe shouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't need to be around here at all. And then they I think after that, they're like, hey, don't come back for a couple of weeks, or it was something weird. And I just remember being
they eventually left.
Yo, you don't have self, awareness about this. But that was, we never even talked about that. But that was, now it's like, you want to know the truth. This is the truth of what really happened and what went down. And I wish it wasn't true, but I remember asking, people around yo, did we just hear what we just heard? And they're like, yeah, that's, and everybody else obviously was scared to.
No, and in those moments you freeze, and your first instinct is to just make sure that this person is okay. And I did what I felt was necessary to reach out to the people that I needed to reach out to make sure that this person was okay. But I just couldn't understand. I couldn't understand how the person that we're supposed to be looking to for guidance, for just wisdom. I know that pastors are not perfect, you guys. I'm trying to say this with grace, because none of us are perfect. And I don't care who your pastor is. I don't care what prophet, what apostle you follow. Earthly leaders are going to let you down. Yeah. We're going to get it wrong. We're going to make mistakes. This is not to crucify this person. This is just I'm trying to get across the weight of this, that people in ministry, our pastors, our leaders, I don't care if you're a servant, we're stewarding people. And when we don't steward people well, we are literally missing the point of the gospel. We're missing the point of what it means to love people. And I wish I could say that after that, I left this church. I wish I could say that after that happened, I decided to walk away. But no, it took a whole other situation where we had to see sexual misconduct and our pastor sitting back, acting like nothing happened, not wanting us to say anything. I remember getting in trouble for telling my kids' pastor about a situation because there was a young man who was having sexual relations that he shouldn't have been, who was serving in the kids' ministry. I remember getting a phone call from my pastor when I was home at 6 p.m. being chewed out, being told, do you know what you've just done, Larissa?
Well, let's dive into the story of what actually.
Let's talk about it.
Because people are like, where you, I want to know this story.
So then go ahead. You tell the story.
So yeah, pretty much.
I've told enough stories.
That what happened was, and we'll get into detail, is that there was a sexual misconduct with an older person and a kid. It was really, really bad story.
An adult and a minor.
And we're gonna fast forward through some scenarios, but pretty much that's what happened. And we ended up being like, okay, this is not good. This happened between the situation. We ended up finding out. I remember we went that morning. Actually, I went that morning and was like, hey, I just heard, because I was the first one that heard pretty much the story. Because somebody snitched and was like, hey, we found out about this and that. And I was like, this is crazy. So that morning I go to pastor and say, hey, look, this is what happened. And like, this isn't good. I just called, I think I spoke to the mom of the person, of the people whatever happened. Cause I was like, this is crazy. And he was super chill about it. He didn't say anything. And I'm like, yo, a 19-year-old just had sex with a minor.
And he looked at it and said, okay.
He was like, well, let's go into detail of what actually happened. He said, okay, well, call the parents and let me know what happens. Like, that's literally all happened. And I'm like, okay, call the parents, dude. Like, are you not? I would be tripping if I was a pastor. Like, the tripping, like, well, we need to figure this out. We need to, I'm involved in this. And he was like, yeah, just a call. And then I'm like, okay. So I talked to the kids pastor that day and I tell him, hey, man, this is what happened. One of the older person had sex with a minor, and he's like, oh my gosh.
And one of them was serving in the youth ministry.
Yeah, so
the adult.
Yeah, adult, and
was having inappropriate relations with a minor. Was serving in a kids ministry.
A really young girl, and I remember I told the kids pastor, I'm talking to him, and we're kind of having discussions, and fast forward in time. Fast forward after all this, after we have discussions, trying to figure everything out. We're only talking to people on staff technically about this.
Yes.
And fast forward, we get a phone call, which went to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
He called me.
So after we told our
right?
kids pastor, our kids pastor told us, hey, you guys, do you guys know that you're mandatory reporters? You need to file a police report.
Yeah, the kids pastor's like, you need to go ahead and tell immediately.
And so we're like, okay, we are looking for
We've never been through this too.
The proper steps to take, because we haven't had to deal with this before.
Right.
And so we go home, we're off the clock. We are sleeping in bed, and I get a phone call at 6:30 p.m. from my pastor. My phone's blowing up. I didn't pick up. Lewis is like, don't pick up. And I was like, well, I'm anxious. I don't know what it is. Yeah. So I pick up the phone. Immediately, my pastor says, Larissa? And I said, yes. And he's like, did you tell the kids pastor about the situation that happened? And I said, yes, because this person is serving in kids ministry. I thought that the kids pastor should know and be aware to take whatever actions need to take place, because you're telling me this is taking place. You want him to be serving on a Sunday? I'm sorry. Yeah. And he says, do you realize what you have just done? Do you realize that the news can come to the church, and now our church could be plastered on a newspaper or on TV? Yeah. And I was like, that's what you're concerned about? You're concerned about the news coming up to your church? You're not concerned about what just happened to this young lady? You're not concerned about this young man? You're not concerned about this whole situation? No, you're concerned about the reputation of your church. That's what it is.
And we'll sit on that. That's the red flag right there, I think. And that's what I found out. It had nothing to do with the kid. It had nothing to do with the situation. No. What was this? And my because I took the phone, I think, from you, and I'm like, yo, like,
that phone.
Yeah, I was like, you're talking to me. Like, I was pissed. And I remember being on the phone, I'm like, wow, in my head, I'm like, you really only care about the news. I'm like, where was this energy this morning? Mm-hmm. But the sad situation, and this is what happens in many churches, and I've seen it in many churches, where rather the narrative has to be quiet, because if it comes out that the adult was sexual misconduct with kids. I've been in a church before where this leader was there for 10 years and finding out he was sexually touching multiple students that I knew, and the church never wants to keep it hush hush and just kick the leader out and be like, they're gone and we'll never talk about this.
It was never addressed.
What happens is, sadly, I think this is what happens to do. People find out about the church, it goes on the news, ruins the reputation for the church church loses money, and now the pastor doesn't have a cool church with people in it, and now you're known as the pedophile church, whatever it is, and that's so sad. I get it, protect, but at the end of the day, we're protecting people, not a building. You know what I'm saying? So that's the sad part about pastors now, is that they would rather be like, no, let's just figure this out so it doesn't, it's like your family news. Like, nobody wants to know the family, like nobody wants to know about the son who's causing mayhem. Let's just keep it quiet. And because if people find out that we're not the perfect family, like we know in the neighborhood, then we're going to look bad. And it's just, that was sad. I remember that just whole situation. I was like, wow, like that was a tipping point for us to be like,
that was the nail that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, that's when I was like, this is so toxic. You're not even, not once did you bring up anything about how it was just all like the news. And I was like, dude, get me out of here.
And that's when you realize from the get-go, and here's the thing, I think as a pastor and a leader, you should be concerned about your church. You should be concerned about protecting everybody. But when you are more concerned about protecting what you just said, a building over the people, and you're more concerned about the perception over actually protecting and taking care of your people, you've gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
You've gotten it wrong. And I think even after that happened, it's crazy how you could be in something and still not realize how bad it is.
Yeah.
And it's really not until you step out that you see everything and you're like, whoa, we just lived that.
Yeah.
I think even on our way out, the way that we left actually solidified that we were in an incredibly unhealthy environment. Because when we approached our pastor to tell him that we wanted to leave, he had his little crocodile tears where he was telling us that he wanted us to stay. He wanted to honor us on the way out.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. He didn't even want us to be on stage on Sunday. That's fine. This is church politics.
Yeah.
We at least got to say goodbye to our students and our young adults. That's all that matters to me. However, when we caught our pastor in a lie, and we had proof and evidence of that, that's when he realized honor goes right out the door when you catch somebody doing something that they're not supposed to do. And we got cornered into an office and asked to sign an NDA.
Crazy. A church making you sign an NDA is crazy work. Which, let's go back to what actually happened, and like, and I think it's like the why, like these stories obviously you're hearing, you're like, holy crap, this is crazy.
Sorry guys, I get a little bit ahead of myself. This is why, guys.
It's all good, right?
This is why, guys.
But the why, right, of like when these situations happen and when we approach, it was like just, I mean, there's so many other things we can go into detail, which we won't go into.
There's too much to talk about.
And for me, those who know me too, like I'm super chill. I'm not really quick to get angry, but it was just after, it's like the bully pushes you enough and you're like, okay, I'm done, right? Like those movies you watch where they're like, dang man, this kid gets bullied every single day. And he finally stands up. And that was the point. I was like, I'm done being here. I stand for truth. And the point is that like, it wasn't just to be like, oh, you treat me wrong and you've been hurting me. It was like, no, you keep, first of all, God hates liars. So I'm like, you keep lying over and over again. And I got the proof now. Hey, let's get to the, and that's how I am. I'm like, we'll show proof.
If I really wanted to be petty, I would play it right now, but I'm not doing that.
But right when we showed proof, it was like, he freaked out.
He got scared.
He got scared, and I remember, just talking to people before all this happened, like, hey, is this normal? Is this normal? And people were like, no. I would talk to senior pastors who ran healthy churches of, maybe like 20 to 30,000 people in a church, and they're like, no, that's not normal. That's kind of weird. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going crazy. I'm not being emotional. But I think what it came down to is that like, it's how to stand for truth. Like, it's just not about, it was not about me. It was about that I want this person to know that anybody that comes after me will know that I stood up and I said, hey, this is the truth.
Yeah.
And everybody else before that always stood quiet. And people were like, yo, I can't believe you said something. And I was like, no, we're done here. Like, I will be the one that's going to say, hey, this is the truth. This is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. And when you stand for truth, people get scared. And nowadays in our culture, now when you speak truth and you share the truth, people will shun you for it because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And at that point, nobody stood up to the big bully. And I was like, I'm done. This is it. I got the proof. And he did his crocodile tears and Fast forward was like,
A week later, hey, I got legal counsel.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta talk to a lawyer. You guys are actually convicted of some weird, crazy stuff.
Committed a 3rd-degree felony.
He was on some weird energy, like and I'm like,
with a board member sitting there, I'm like, he lies.
I'm like, bro, get me out of this. Get me out of here, bro. I am done. I'll go be homeless on the street.
So we signed it. We signed the NDA because we didn't want.
Yeah, I was just like, get me out of here. Give me the paper. Like, you're weird. And that's the truth, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember, one time this person literally tried to come up and shake my hand. I'm like, bro, you're weird. Why you literally came up to me after making us sign an NDA and sending in multiple cease and desist letters, trying to shake my hand in public at a church event. I'm like, respectfully, I'm good. I declined. Yeah. And we were nice in our last episode.
We were really nice.
We were super chill about it, Like we didn't. People were like, "Yo, I'm surprised y'all didn't go a little bit hard," And we're like, "No, it's all good." But now it's like, okay, you want to go ahead and send out letters and like let's just speak the truth. This is for people. The whole point of this is to let people know you're watching. Like, dang, these are crazy stories. It's to let you know that you need to speak for truth and what you stand for nowadays. Like that's why things are just now, things are crazy now because people are standing up. People are getting on social media like, I'm fed up. I'm tired. people are being exposed for who they are, and it's happening, and it's not until it's funny, but even the whole Diddy thing, it wasn't until a video came out, they're like, wow, if they're 25, how long has this been happening?
Right.
But when you have power, when you have control, when you're toxic and things like that, and obviously the Diddy situation is a little crazy out there, but the whole point is control and power and manipulation, and that sets in people, and sadly, you got to pray for those people, and where they're at, and that's where we're at. But we're fed up. Yeah, we're like, no, okay.
No, it gets to a point where when you leave an organization, now you're starting the healing journey where you're just trying to move on, you're trying to transition, you're trying to figure out what was next. And that's exactly what we were trying to do. I mean, I remember it's so funny because even in that last meeting, he looked at us and he was like, I really hope this isn't the end of the road in ministry for you guys. And I looked at him and said, don't worry, it's not. Yeah. And Lewis and I did exactly what we knew to do was to just move on and continue moving forward. And we actually had
never felt more free than ever.
Yeah. We had friends in ministry that actually were like, hey, come under our wing. We want to help you. We want to give you opportunities. And I remember getting an opportunity to do something for a local conference that we actually would take our students to. And I remember, being asked, hey, Larissa, can you MC this? Can you do a leadership panel? Actually, we need help with an opener. Do you know anyone? I was like, duh, my husband, let's go. And so, Lewis is bringing in his people, his connections. At this point, we had already moved to Texas. We're long distance figuring out this conference. Yeah. And I remember a week, not even, maybe a couple weeks before the conference, maybe it was a little bit longer than that, getting a phone call from somebody and being told, hey, Larissa, I'm so sorry, but I'm no longer going to be able to allow you to MC and be on the panel. You can still be at the conference. You just can't be seen. And I remember thinking, what do you mean by that? I'm confused. Like, you can go, you just have to be backstage. And I respectfully was like, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity, because I had no beef with the person telling me this. She was just the messenger, and I said, thank you so much. Hung up the phone, had my little moment, crashed out, cried in the car, and then called my husband and I was like, hey, this is what happened. I'm very confused. Right. I have no idea what happened, but something about this feels very icky. And it feels like there's some kind of foul play in this situation. And
yeah, it's crazy because, so they were like, hey, we want you to do this, create the opener, make this, it's going to be a cool event. We're excited. And they call Larissa and they're like, sorry, but we don't need you guys anymore. We went to, we can't really have you guys on stage. Mm-hmm. And we're like, what? And they're like, why? Yeah. And we're like, why? What? Like, so there's something like, yeah, she just said, no, we can't, have you on stage. And you guys pretty much, upper leadership mentioned that we can't use you guys.
They said your character is in question.
So so it's funny. I call this guy who's the one that pretty much was like the director of everything, was like, yeah, come do this. Mm-hmm. Me and him were chopping it up. Like, we were vibing about literally like we're talking about the situation that we just came out of. And it's so funny. He was dogging the person that was in leadership that we worked for. And he was literally mentioning that, like, yeah, man. He's like, yeah, man. He's like this. He's like that. And I remember being like, okay. I'm like, yo, I wish somebody would tell me this before. I remember he was like, yeah, like, Lewis, I understand where you're at, and I'm like, okay, he understands where I'm at. So when I called him, I was like, yo, what's going on? Like, we're cool. And he's like, hey, Lewis, man, I'm sorry, but like, I said, did this person who's the one that said something? He goes, you already know who said something. And obviously, he's like, he reported it to the higher up above me. And I get it. The higher guy above him cuts
church politics, right?
Cuts the check. And I'm like, dang. But I'm like telling the director, I'm like, yo, like, come on, man. Like, bro, this is evil. This is like wicked. Like, we're not even there anymore. We didn't like go bashed it. Like, why is he? And he's like, Lewis. He's like, I'm sorry, man. Like, and I said, look, respectfully, and it was nothing against him. I said, if you guys don't want me, then you're not getting my creativity.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not bringing my human video orchestrated. I reached out to like, shout out to my boys who canceled on it too because they were with me. But I call like dancers to come meet. We did like a Zoom call. We had a meeting. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, if you don't want me, I'm not going. And my team's not going. And he switched up on me immediately. Was like, oh, are you trying to sabotage the conference? And I'm like, conference? He's like, yeah, you're trying to sabotage the.
He said, you want to sabotage my conference.
And I'm like, this is God's conference, first of all.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is not about you or the conference. This is about like what's happening. Like, you don't understand. And you know, he just switched up on me at that point and was like, oh, like, okay, so now the truth is that you really kind of just wanted my creativity. You wanted to use me. But I'm like, chill about it. I said, sorry, respectfully. I should have like went off on him. But I was like, no, I'm good. I'm done. Like, I'm done here. Hung up the phone. And I called my boys and said, yo, we're not doing this anymore. And they're like, bet we're not. So shout outs to my guys. They were like, we're not doing it. And we never talked to that guy again. Never did. Saw him before, awkward. You know.
And mind you, that's the same person that while we were pastoring would pull me inside and say, Larissa, I just want you to know that we really want to empower women in ministry. We'd actually love to give you a seat at the table. We want more Hispanic female voices. And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, I love it.
We need
some
color.
Yeah, we need diversity in this organization because it's very...
Which I mean, that speaking on that, I think it's like for people, why is this story important? And you're hearing this one's kind of crazy. Is that what I learned?
Got something to say after this.
What I learned, I think, from that situation was just never put trust in man. Like, obviously, some people like I don't trust people. It's like, I mean, you gotta have some type of like, you gotta lean on someone, but you just can't have your hopes up. You know, like have the faith, have the hope, but people will fail you. And I learned like, hey. Doesn't matter if the person's like, yo, I got your back. Let's go in ministry. Everything is some things are transactional and you have to be okay with that. So I forgive that person. I was like, it's all good. Like I understand where you stay at and I know that I'll never do it.
That's it. I know who you really are.
Yeah, I know who you really are. So I know there's probably people who are watching this who've been in that place where like their pastor asked them to create something for them and shot it down, or, you know, or somebody called you from church like, hey, I want you to speak at this event, or just completely dropped you. So it's just to know that like, hey, God has the final say.
Amen.
And I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for all those no's and that fakeness, I would call it.
And even then, I feel like God, in the midst of all of that mess, God still placed people in our life that were there to advocate for us. You know, we had somebody that we told the situation to, and he was like, oh no. This isn't right. He saw straight through it and he was like, you know what? I'm going to help you guys out. I'm going to give you the contacts of the people that are high up in this organization. Yeah. Here's a letter that you can send into them for them to just hear you out and hear your side of the story. Because what had happened is our pastor went and called his people, his connections, told his side of the story, and we were left, you know, in the dark. We were the one that we didn't get a chance to speak up for ourselves. And I just was like, you know, I think I am very justice driven. And in the end, whether you choose to believe me or not, that's your problem. But I just want to be heard sometimes. And I remember sending out that letter, sending it out to multiple people and never hearing anything back. Nothing. Not a phone call, not an email, not a text, nothing.
This is the organization that we leaned on.
This is the organization that I grew up in, and this is also the organization that I had my license to minister. So after I didn't hear anything back, this is actually the reason why I chose to withdraw my license to minister under this organization. Number one, not only do you have to pay an annual fee to simply withhold your credentials, whether you are, accredited? I think the first one is, what is the first one?
Whatever it is, something.
Whether you're accredited, licensed, or ordained, you have to pay an annual fee. You got to tack on an extra $100 for every level you choose to go up in. Number two, you also have to pay an extra tithe to that organization on top of what you're already paying to your local church. And three, this organization is very quick to pull up a seat at the table when they need a check mark for diversity, when they want to act like they support women in ministry. But when the time comes for somebody, for a young Latina minister to actually need somebody to listen and advocate for her, no one is anywhere to be found.
Crazy.
So why would I continue giving my money to a ministry and an organization that doesn't actually protect its people? And that might not be the case for everybody, but in that moment, I could see exactly what I needed to see. And I knew in that moment that is not an organization that I feel comfortable supporting. But I also recognize that not every church, that not every leader, that not every pastor operates this way. And I think at the end of the day, what's important is for people to realize that church hurt is real. Spiritual abuse is real.
Right.
People will misuse and mishandle their power, their position. There are a lot of insecure leaders out there whose entire identity is found in their title. If you take it away from them, I promise you, they would have no idea who they are. But at the end of the day, if nobody speaks up about these things, it is going to continue to happen. You can look at the story and think, oh, wow, they're so sad. They lost an opportunity to minister at a conference. And oh, no, their pastor didn't believe a young girl. And oh, no, they were reprimanded for their actions and they were in competition with other churches. It might look very minuscule to you, but until you live it, until you experience the emotional toll that these things take on you, you will never understand. So when somebody opens up to you about their church hurt, about their spiritual abuse, about their emotional abuse, do me a favor and believe them and listen to them and be an advocate. If you want to call yourself a follower of Christ, if you claim to follow a God who looks out for the poor, the marginalized, the widow, the brokenhearted, then do yourself a favor and love and listen to your neighbors, your friends, your family members, and the people that walk around your church, your leaders, your staff members, everybody. There's too many young men and women who are living in the shadows, living in fear, terrified that if they speak up about their experiences, that they'll lose their job, or if they tell somebody else that they'll lose future opportunities. We shouldn't be living in a world like that. It's 2025.
Yeah.
Like I'm tired of it. And I'm speaking with this much passion and frustration. You can interpret it however you like, but I'm tired of it. After years and years and years of getting pushed around by the same person and still seeing them year after year try to actually move themselves up in the rank of this organization, it's disgusting.
It's crazy.
It is disgusting. And nobody does anything about it because this is a little good old boys club where everybody looks out and protects one another and nobody calls each other out. And that is an issue. We have to hold each other accountable as brothers and sisters in Christ. You might think this is hyperbolic, but after Rabbi Zacharias passed away, it came to light that he was running a sex trafficking ring. I wonder how many people already knew that he was doing that, but were terrified to speak up. And it didn't take until this man passed away for that to have to come into the light.
That was wild too. Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing that.
No, I mean, I've had stories. I've hung around no names, but I've been around somebody who I thought I saw a lot of red flags. I remember being like, yo, this is kind of sketchy. And they're like, no, I don't think so. Cause this guy was preaching and he was traveling the world and he was known. And I remember being around this person and God forgives, he heals people and stuff. I believe that obviously
yes, he does.
People are wicked in a certain way.
Restore.
But I remember seeing this guy preying on young men, and I remember being like, hey, I see some weird stuff. People would tell me like, hey, I think, and finding out, this dude was preying on young kids and doing stuff with younger guys and end up getting in trouble and caught years later. And people are like, oh my God, I didn't know. And I'm like, and obviously the church kept it kind of quiet because they didn't want to, it to come out. And I've seen it happen over and over. And every time I saw it, I always be like, yo, this is kind of weird. And I remember at another church I was at, great church, I loved it, but there's also wicked people. There's people who, they're literally people are at church because they got problems, right? So it's like people are like, why is that happening in the church? Well, people with problems show up for answers and they still have problems that don't get solved from God because they're in secrecy. But I remember just, being there and this dude was preying on young kids and multiple, like 5 kids came out and this dude was sleeping at people's, I remember him living at the students' houses. Like, I'm living with this student. I'm like, yo, this is mad weird. And still doing ministry. He got hired up down the street at another church and nobody ever talked about it. And it was just sad. I remember I was really close with the parents and they want to file charges. And it was just sad that the church doesn't really do anything now. And it's just like, where's the truth? Where do we stand up? What happens when the sermon's not happening? What's happening when the event's not happening? And where's the justice at? It's like, I think the church separates the law sometimes and like real law, like people going to jail. I think some people need to go to jail. Robert Morris situation happened with like a young teen, like years and years that who knows other people. There's a whole bunch of other stories out there. And it's not just to bash. We're not here just to go ham on churches, but it's sad when you start seeing it. It's like somebody's got to say something. And obviously it's called Tell Like It Is. So we're going to tell like it is here.
We are.
And these are real stories that happen. I had a guy message me on Instagram like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm at a church, at a mega church on the East Coast. I really feel like I'm going through some things that you mentioned." And I'm like, "Dang, it's a sad young dude, maybe about 23, 24. And he's like, "Can I jump on a call, like to get some insight, And we're not here just to be like, yeah, leave your church, like it's toxic.
No.
But it's like, no, there's real things out here that are happening, and they need to be talked about. And what you do in the dark will come to the light.
Yeah.
And some of these things that pastors and churches are doing, I wouldn't say just pastors, leaders, people in higher leadership are just doing wrong things and they need to be accounted for it. And I think in the same way how we stand up for the truth and the gospel, I think Jesus will stand up for these situations too.
Amen. And people say what happens in the dark will come into the light, and we just kind of we step back and pray that it'll just come into the light. No,
you got to come out and say something.
But the Bible literally says in Ephesians have nothing to do with unfruitful acts of darkness, rather expose them. And sometimes God allows you to see these things, not to just sit back and judge and point your finger and criticize churches, but for you to be a voice and an advocate for people. And I'm not saying we have so many people that are so overly critical that pastors get angry when people raise their concerns and congregants don't feel heard. And it is important for us to be even more cautious when we choose to bring things to the attention of our pastors, because we don't want to be this broken record where you're just picking apart the lights and the sound and the chairs, where you're bringing real issues that need to be dealt with because you care, because you're concerned. And as the church, as the body of Christ, we should be able to have the freedom to do that within, there need to be boundaries for things, but there's so many people that just get gaslit into believing, just stay quiet, don't say anything. Yeah. You don't want to get in trouble, or if they know that then they're going to be mad, or you're going to lose opportunities. And it's like, at what cost?
And what's crazy is that when we left, I remember pastors like literally leaving and being like, "Hey, like, I couldn't stand it. I couldn't." I remember another leader it's funny when another leader that left and was like, "Yo, this guy's toxic." And it was like, I knew it was gonna come out that people were gonna mention stuff. Yeah. And I remember while we were there, they're like, "No, God's gonna work through it." And now those people got hurt too. And there's probably so many other people that got
It's like,
hurt.
How many people have to get hurt for something to be addressed?
I remember like somebody wrote a blog about him and was like, "Oh, him," and people at the church were like, "Why does he have a blog?" And I'm like, that person I actually was like, maybe he
and I wish we would have paid attention to the blog.
I remember he wrote a blog about it. This kid that was there, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about, that blog. Yeah, he should have kept that up. I think he took it down. Maybe he was afraid. Maybe he got a cease and desist or something.
He probably did get a cease and desist. That's all.
But the truth is out there. We're gonna tell like it is always. We're gonna let people know the truth. We're always going to stand up for what is right. And for those who know me, y'all know me. Our last one we did on the last episode 2, we were chill. We were nice.
Sorry.
We don't punch down, but we will call people out on where they're at. And a good friend of mine was like, "Yeah, you need to rip up that paper." And
listen, I didn't set it on fire because it would be a fire hazard.
Yeah, we couldn't burn it in here.
I gotta look out for our space.
So probably just but. Yeah, we're here to speak out and tell what's going on and guide people through this. The whole point of this is for you to message us, DM us.
Yes.
Hey, we want to help you, right? Comment.
Out.
There's something you probably want to know that we went through. Hey, we want us to know how to manage it. We'll do our best to give you the best insight, free of charge. And hopefully this was healing for you too.
Listen, I as a passionate Latina, everyone loves to be like, "Oh, she's mad, she's angry. Oh, here she goes." You know what? There comes a time where you need to start operating. You need to start having some righteous anger.
Right, yeah, for real.
Because some people are not mad enough at what is happening in this generation, where we could have leaders sending dick pics and getting hired at the church down the street because their daddy can sweep it under the rug. And we have people who can inappropriately touch minors and still get hired at another church because they're hired off of their creativity and their giftings over their character. It is time that we start sifting, asking God to reveal to us who and where are the wolves in sheep's clothing. Lord, reveal to us who are the false prophets, who are the real people. We're all going to get it wrong. We're all going to make mistakes, but we need to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt just because they have a title in front of their name, or just because they have connections and they know people and they've been in it as long as they have. At this point, longevity means nothing if your character isn't lined up with that longevity.
Right. True.
I hope that this brings insight. I don't know. I hope that this just in some way, shape, or form can be a beacon of hope that you are not alone, that you are not the only one dealing with this. Don't let any pastor, leader, or staff member or church congregant gaslight you to believing that you're not experiencing and not seeing what you're seeing. Believe in the discernment that the Lord has given you. And at the end of the day, we should be concerned about the perception that God has about us rather than leaders. We should honor our leaders. We should honor our shepherds. But at the end of the day,
call them out. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, do with that what you please. But at the end of the day, I want to hear good job, well done, good and faithful servant. Not well done, good and faithful pastor, leader, podcaster, content creator.
That's real. That's real.
And that's it.
That
concludes our very last episode of the Tell It Like It Is podcast.
If we get another cease and desist, we'll rip it up again.
And if we get another cease and desist,
which I wouldn't be surprised if we get one for this one too.
We probably will. It's okay. I can deal with it. Don't worry. I got lawyer money this time.
Let's go.
But if you enjoyed this video, make sure that, I'll say that again. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up, comment below, let us know your thoughts. If you don't feel comfortable commenting, feel free to shoot my husband
and subscribe,
or me.
baby. Subscribe.
Yes, and subscribe so you can get a notification. We will be coming out with season 2 very soon.
And we got some good news.
We do got some very good news. So love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you guys later. Bye.